Okay, once again, good morning to one and all, wherever you are. Allow me to finally discuss the last topic for the subject uh, specialized crime investigation one with legal medicine. So, this part will be the last one as far as the subject is concerned. But again, uh, we may end the discussion on this particular subject, but still, no, this is the start. No, this is the start of everything. That as you go on, as you go as the years uh, pass, then you will learn more as far as your subjects are concerned. So, with that, allow me to discuss this topic in chapter 6. No, chapter 6. Okay. Okay. So as you see, chapter 6 is entitled, uh, okay, so as again, chapter 6 is all about the investigation of physical injuries and homicide. So basically, this is another additional inputs or knowledge that you will gain as far as specialized crime investigation 1 with legal medicine is concerned. No? So again, do not forget that SCI1 is all about the specific investigation of selected or specific crimes, especially those crimes that forensic science is much used, and whereas these crimes basically have a crime scene. So therefore, in a CI1 with legal medicine, you will remember the proper procedures in the investigation of crimes or specific crimes, especially during crime scene investigation. No, a special crime scene investigation and the use of physical as evidence and the use of forensic science in the solution of crime problem. Okay, while a CI2, no, a CI2 with simulation on interrogation and interview is basically a continuation of a CI2, no, that tackles, no, other specific crimes, no, that were not discussed in SCI1, no, and basically SCI1 also emphasizes, no, the importance of interview and interrogation in the whole process of criminal investigation. No, and also in the SCI2, you will also consider uh, the rights that every suspect or accused uh, is entitled of. That as investigators, you should observe them to avoid uh, problems, especially during court presentation. Okay, so let us then proceed. Uh, in the investigation of physical injuries, always remember this, that homicide or homicide generic. Pag sinabing generic, because remember this, no, when the crime involves killing, no, or there is someone who died as a result of an incident, then basically whether the crime was intentionally done or the killing was intentionally done or it is a matter of accident, then we call it as homicide if we use it in a generic one. So pag sinabing generic, general. So pag ang paggamit mo ng term na homicide is generic, then yan, it's either murder or homicide. Yan. Okay? Iba naman ang parricide, iba naman ang infanticide. So because these are specific, no? Pag ang pinatay mo is member of your family, like your father, your son, your daughter, your wife, then it will become parricide, no? Kung pinatay mo is below 72 hours human, no? Then it will become infanticide. So, what I am saying a while ago is, no, sometimes physical injuries leads to the commission of homicide. No, physical injuries may be the cause of a homicide. No, okay. So, and physical injuries also, no, is a crime, or physical injury is a crime, homicide is a crime, no? But again, there are other considerations that we have to remember when we are dealing with physical injuries and homicide, especially its medical legal approaches. Kasi ang physical injuries, meron namang yung definition sa revised penal code in our criminal law. No, that is the legal description on what is physical injuries. No, but as a matter of investigation, no, as part of investigation, when you make reports, when you make your observation, you have to use the proper terms. And when you are conducting investigation, there are medical legal terms that you will use in your report. Okay? Yeah, just like the term rigor mortis. No, that is a medical legal term. Okay? So that is why ganun din sa physical injuries, no? Let us explore on the medical legal issues that you have to consider when you are investigating a physical injury, no? So again, in the law, in our criminal law, there are the classifications of physical injuries. We have serious, less serious, and slight physical injuries. No? So, uh, injuries also, no, when you are investigation, can be used as evidence. No? Or injuries or physical injuries can be used as evidence. Okay? Yeah, as evidence. For example, you are able to, no, during the physical examination of a suspect, no, nakita mo meron siyang mga scratches, no? Scratches. So, that can be used to make your conclusion on what really happened. So, pwede mong masabi as a matter of uh, conclusion that the victim were able to fight back or defend himself or herself during the commission of the crime. Kasi nga merong scratches yung victim, yung suspect. So, pwede rin gamitin yan. So, pag meron kang 5 suspect, no? Yan. Merong isa na example in a rape case, yung isa is meron siyang scratches sa kanyang what is that, neck, for example. So, pwede mong gamitin yan, no, to have an initial evidence na this person might be the suspect. Kasi sabi ng victim, for instance, kinalmot ko siya, no, may kalmot yun sigurado kasi nakalmot ko when he was able to rape me, no? So, pwede mong gamitin yung injury na yan. Okay? Yung physical injury na yan. So, that is why dual meaning ang physical injury. Physical injury may be a wound or a stimulus on the body. Second is physical injury can be qualified as a crime. No? A crime punishable by the revised penal code. Okay? So let us see what is physical injury. It is mentioned here. Physical injury is the effect of some form of stimulus on the body. Yan. No? The effect may only be apparent when the stimulus applied is insufficient to cause injury and the body resistance is great. It may be real when the effect is visible. Yan. So commonly, ang physical injury is visible. No? At maraming klase ng physical injury. Okay? Another physical injury is the effect of the application of stimulus. Yan. Okay? Lahat ng physical injuries, kung walang stimulus or walang uh, things or material or movement coming from the outside towards your body, then walang physical injury. So commonly, lahat is nanggagaling outside towards you. Example, binato ka ng bato, yung bato na yon, yung pagbato ng bato sa iyo, that is the stimulus that may cause physical injury. Okay? So yan. A thrust of the body of a sharp-pointed and sharp-edged instrument will lead to the immediate production of a stab wound. Yan. So tignan ninyo. So the presence of wound, for example, is a sign of physical injury. Okay? While hit by a blunt object may cause the delayed production of a contusion. Okay? A contusion. Sometimes, pwedeng wala ka munang nakikitang injury. No? After 1 minute, after 1 hour, after 1 day, bago may lumabas na black eye, for example, or nagiging dark blue yung area kung saan tumama ang isang blunt object. Ang isang blunt object, ang isang is that ang isang blunt object is like that. There you go. Ganyan. Yan, hindi siya sharp. Yan. Hindi rin siya flat. So yan ang blunt. Okay? Or kung sa mga bato na very fine, no? No, wala siyang pointed on the bato, for example, at tumama, those are blunt objects, no? Okay? So, yan, pag yan ang tumama, hindi mo muna makikita agad-agad, karamihan, no? But after 1 hour or 2 hours, makikita mo na yung effect ng stimulus na yan. Okay? So, next topic is causes of physical injuries, no? Causes of physical injuries. Number 1, ito yung pinaka-common, physical violence. The effect of the application of physical violence on a person is the production of wound. Let me repeat. The effect of the application of physical violence on a person is the production of the wound. And what is wound? Wound is the solution of the natural continuity of any tissue. Pag nakat yung tissue mo, there is already disruption on the natural continuity of any tissue. Pag yung ilong mo nawasak, nakakaroon ng natural, there is disruption of the natural continuity of any tissue in the body. The wound is the disruption of the anatomic integrity of a tissue of the body. In several occasions, the word physical injury is used interchangeably with wound. Karamihan, pag sinabi mong wound, physical injury. However, the effect of the physical violence may not always result to the production of wound, but the wound is always the effect of physical evidence. So, hindi lahat ng physical injury ay there is wound, no? But again, wound always the effect of physical violence. Okay? Ganon din, hindi lahat ng physical injuries ay may wound. Hindi rin lahat ng what is that? Let me repeat. Hindi lahat ng physical injuries ay may wound. However, a wound is always the effect of physical violence. Kaya pag meron kang wound, that there is physical violence. If there is wound, there is physical violence. If there is physical violence, there is wound, there is physical injury. But again, not all physical injuries produces a physical or wound. Okay? What is the vital reaction of the body? Pag tayo ay nasugatan, nasaktan because of the stimulus, ano yung mga vital reaction of our body? So therefore, before we proceed, vital reaction is the sum total of all reactions of the tissue or organ to trauma. Yan, pag sinabi mong trauma, ganun din yung pagka ay pinalo. So yung effect nito sa iyo, naging black eye, that is the trauma, no? Ganun din pag nasugatan ka, that is a trauma, no? The reaction will be observed microscopically and microscopically, macro and micro. The following are the common reactions of our body to trauma. So pag sabing trauma, again, physical injury or stimulus against the body. So ano yung common reactions ng katawan? Rubor. So pag merong redness or congestion of the area due to an increase of blood supply as a part of the reparative mechanism, when there is redness, we call it the stage of rubor. So there is rubor. Sensation of heat or increase in temperature. Init yung area kung saan andun ang physical injury or wound. Dolor, there is pain on account of involvement of the sensory nerve. And lastly, loss of function, only account of the trauma. Of course, pag ikaw ay napalo, for example, sa kamay mo, hindi ka na makagalaw. Kaya on account of trauma, they may not be able to function normally. So yan yung mga reactions ng katawan natin when a living person or tissue have a trauma or physical violence. There is rubor, color, dolor, and loss of function. Okay, so okay, so again, those are the effects or reaction of the body. No, whenever there is a trauma, whenever there is a violence or physical violence that is being introduced into the body, there will be rubor, that is the redness, no, or the congestion of the area due to the increase of blood supply. No, pallor is that is a sensation of heat or increase in temperature. Dolor, that is a pain on account of the involvement of the sensory nerve. And lastly, if it is very serious, loss of function. On account of trauma, the tissue may not be able to function normally. And another topic as far as wound is concerned are the classification of wounds. Pwede niyong gamitin ito sa report when you conduct an investigative report. Mortal wound, as to the severity, as to the seriousness of the wound, the first is mortal wound. Wound which is caused immediately after infliction or shortly thereafter that is capable of causing death. Yeah. Okay? Mortal wound. Ah, oh. Sample, talagang malaki yung tama at tumama pa sa area that is vital in the body, then that is a mortal wound. Okay? That may cause death. Next, classification of wound as to severity is the so-called non-mortal. So pag mayroong mortal, then there is non-mortal. So but before we proceed to the non-mortal, what are the parts of the body where the wounds inflicted are considered mortal? Example, tumama yung wound sa heart, brain, lungs, and stomach, liver, spleen, and intestine, then such wound shall be considered mortal wound. Second classification of wound as to severity is the non-mortal wound. Wound which is not capable of producing death. Yeah, of course. Kung nasugatan lang yan sa kamay mo, sa fingers mo, malayo yan sa bituka. That is non-mortal wound. Second classification of wound as to the kind of instrument used. So nakadepende yan kung anong instrument ang nagamit. Okay? Ah, so that is why dito sa kind of instrument, makikita mo kung anong klaseng instrument. Pag investigator ka, nakita mo yung klase ng wound, pwede mong sabihin that is a punctured wound, that is a stab wound. Yan. Okay? So, let us see. First is wound brought about by blunt object. So, pag sinabi mong blunt, sabi ko nga kanina, blunt ang isang object if it is not sharp, it is not edged, yan. It is not pointed, no? That is blunt. Okay? So, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Yan, pag ganyan, hindi naman siya pointed, then that is a blunt object. Or yung isang circle or yung bato, for example, smooth siya, wala siyang mga pointed part, then that is a blunt object. Okay? Pag tumama yan, pwedeng magkaroon ng contusion, bukol, pwedeng magkaroon ng hematoma, yan, or pwedeng magkaroon ng lacerated wound. Yan, yung pag sa lacerated, yan yung mapunit, no? Yung skin, for example. So, ang hematoma, yan yung mga black eye. Okay? Yan, black eye. Wound brought about by sharp instrument. So, pag sharp instrument ang involved, ito yung klase ng wound. So, pag sharp-edged instrument, no? So, yung edge niya like the knife. Okay? Pag yung knife, inanyan mo, then ang magiging effect is incised wound. Pag sharp-pointed instrument, sharp-pointed, tulad ng nail, for example, or yung arrow, yan, that is a sharp-pointed instrument, or spear, yan. So, it is sharp and it is pointed. O katulad ng needle, yan ang isang pinaka-best example. Yung kanyang point is sharp. Then, pag tumama yan sa body, then the name of the wound, pwede mong sabihin sa report mo pag nag-investigate ka as a punctured wound. And the other one is sharp-edged and sharp-pointed instrument. So, yung knife ang isang example ng isang sharp-edged and sharp-pointed. Yan. Okay? Pero hindi lahat din ng knife is sharp-pointed. Okay? So, sharp-edged and sharp-pointed instrument. So, pag yan ang ginamit, yan, sinaksak sa'yo, that is a stab wound. So, makikita mo yung itsura niya. So, makaibang itsura ng incised, no? At saka punctured, at saka stab wound. Makikita mo naman yan sa opening ng wound. The third is wound brought about by tearing force or lacerated wound. Yeah. Napunit, common yan sa crime of rape. Yeah. Dahil na puwersa, there is a blunt object, then there is lacerated one. Tearing, no? Yeah. Pag tumama ka sa isang area na smooth at there is force, makakaroon ng tearing. Pwedeng mapunit ang skin mo, no? For example, yung buhok mo, example, tumama sa isang machine, no? At hinugot yung buong buhok mo, napunit lahat yung skin, including the hair, and that is a tearing force. Wound brought about by change of atmospheric pressure. Yan, change of atmospheric pressure. So, nasa environment naman yan, no? Atmospheric pressure. Okay? There is what is called barotrauma. Wound brought about by heat or cold. Yan. Burns ang tawag dyan, or scald or frostbite. Wound brought about by chemical explosion. Yan, because of gunshot or shrapnel. No? And wound brought about by infection. So, alam nyo naman, pag infection, yan, Example, nabulok yung skin, also of course, makakaroon ng wound yan. So that number third classification of wound is as to the manner of infliction. So manner of infliction by means of bolo, blunt instrument, or axe, then there is a hit. No? Yan. Kapag pinalo ka, that is hit. Kapag ikaw naman ay dagger o bayonet dagger ang ginamit, yan, tinusok, and that is thrust or stab. Pag projectile or shrapnel ang tumama, that is a gunpowder explosion. Then sliding or rubbing or abrasion, yan yung gasgas, sliding. For example, sa motor, na-aksidente ka, galis yung katawan mo sa road, then nakakaroon ng sliding and nakakaroon ng abrasion, gasgas. Okay? Yan yung term, abrasion. Then as to the regards to the depth of wound, yan, of course, depth, gaano ito kalalim. So pag konti lang, hindi naman niya naapektuhan ang malalim, then that is superficial. Pag ang wound is malalim, pumunta na sa epidermis, dermis I should say, saka subcutaneous layer of the skin, no? That is already deep, no? Kaya nga pag superficial ang wound mo sa hospital, hindi na kailangang idait yan. Pero pag deep yan, kailangan there is medical intervention. Okay? So as far as deep wound is concerned, there are two terms and situations that you have to distinguish. The term penetrating wound and the term perforating wound. Perforating and penetrating. So pag ang wound, no, example yung instrument, tumagos yan, no, through and through, at lumabas doon, yan, lumabas, that is penetrating. Penetrating, I should say, pag pumasok, let me correct my statement, pag ang isang instrument pumasok sa loob ng katawan, for example, that is penetrating. Okay? Ang isa naman, pag ang perforating, pag ang instrument, because of force, tinusok yan, nag-penetrate at lumabas pa yung instrument on the other side of the part of the body, then that is perforating. Example, tinusok mo ito at sa loob lang, hindi lumabas yung tinusok mo, that is penetrating. Pero pag yung tinusok or yung instrument being introduced into the body as a matter of violence, no, at lumabas siya through and through, lumabas, that is perforating wound. Perforating. So ano ang pinaka-serious between penetrating and perforating? Of course, as a deep wound, it is the perforating wound. Okay? Example, yung mga na-aksidente, natutusok, o kumamit ng spear, tinusok ka, lumabas sa likod mo, tinusok ka sa stomach, lumabas sa likod mo yung pointed part of the spear, then that is perforating. Pero pag pumasok lang sa loob at hindi lumabas, that is penetrating. So ulitin ko, pag pumasok ang isang instrument at hanggang sa loob lang yon, that is penetrating wound. Pero pag pumasok at lumabas ang instrument through and through, that is perforating wound. So mas seryoso ang perforating. Okay? Next is classification of wound as regards to the relation of the site of the application of force and the location of injury. So commonly itong mga yan, pwede nating sabihin commonly applicable yan sa head injury, no? Head injury. Okay? Head injury. But we can also use this in some of the wound in the part of the body. Okay? In regards to the site of application, example sa head, tumama dito, dito nagkaroon ng contusion or hematoma, then that is the site of application. So makikita mo kung saan tumama. Okay? So dito sa co-injury, yan, that is co-injury, physical injury which is located on the site of the application of force. So kung dito tumama yung object or instrument at dito nagkaroon ng bukol or pamamaga, then pwede mong sabihin dito yung site of application pag dito tumama, no? Kung saan tumama yung instrument, doon din nagkaroon ng wound or injury. Yan ay co-injury. So let me repeat, itong co na yan, commonly applicable in head injury. The next one is contre-coup injury. Contre-coup injury. Physical injury found opposite on the site of application. So, pag dito tumama yung instrument, walang kasi sa head naman, for example, sa loob, no, sa ulo, andyan yung head natin, it is floating. So pag mayroong trauma, example, pinalo dito o nauntok ka dito, yung utak natin, nag-move yan. Kung nag-move yan doon, pwedeng dito magkaroon sa other side, hindi dito kung saan may application. Yan. So dito, natama, ang sugat mo is dito sa opposite side. That is contre-coup injury. Pag dito natamaan, dito rin nagkaroon ng injury, then that is co-injury. Ang isa namang pangatlo is co-contre-coup injury. These are physical injuries located on the site and also on the opposite. So ito, 2-in-1 yan. So dito tumama, nagkaroon ng injury, then double. Kaya pag yung utak mo na naalog, pumunta natamaan siya dito, then nag-move siya the other side, nagkaroon na naman ng injury, then that is contre-coup, contre-coup injury. So pag yan. So pag dito tumama yung injury at dito nagkaroon ng injury, then that is coup. Pag dito ang injury, dito ang force or impact of the instrument, walang injury dyan, dito nagkaroon ng injury, then that is contre-coup injury. Pero pag dito, nagkaroon dito ang force of the injury or the instrument, dito na-introduce yung instrument, merong injury dito, merong pang injury on the other side, then that is contre-coup injury. Co-contre-coup injury, I should say. So 2-in-1. Co-contre-coup injury. Okay? So what is co-contre-coup injury? Sa impact or kung saan unang tumama yung instrument on the part of the body, merong wound at meron ding wound on the other side or opposite side. That is co-contre-coup. Okay? Then the, what is that? Okay? Another is the Locus Minoris resistancia. Physical injury is located not on the site nor opposite of the side of the application of force, but in some areas offering the least resistance to the applied force. Example, wala kang injury sa inside your head. Either dito, ang tumama, walang injury. On the opposite side, walang injury. Pero yung mata mo, lumaki. Yan yung naapektuhan. So, ibang parte of the body dahil sa lakas ng impact. Okay? Ayan. Okay? So, sabi niya dito, physical injuries located not on the side nor opposite side of the application of force, but in some areas offering the least resistance of the force applied. Example nga, tumama yung ulo mo, dito for example, wala namang injury dyan, wala ring injury sa likod, pero yung mata mo lumaki o nagdugo. Yan. Tawag dyan is locus minoris resistentia. So a blow on the forehead may cause contusion on the region of the eyeball because of the fracture of the papyraceous bone forming the roof of the orbit. So yan ang sinasabi. Kaya sometimes, bakit nauntog ang ulo ng isang tao, lumaki ang mata? Yan yung impact. Tinatawag na locus minoris resistentia. Yan. Parang sa sitwasyon ng buhay natin, may dalawang taong nag-aaway, no? Sila parang normal na sa kanila, pero ang masyadong naapektuhan is yung ibang tao. Example, yung mga anak, yung mga magulang, mga kapatid, sila ang mas naapektuhan. Then yung mga kapatid, sila ang locus minoris resistensya. Okay? So, do not forget, no? Co-injury, ah, kung saan ang site of application ng instrument or force, doon ang may injury, that is co. Pag kontre co, walang wound or injury kung saan ang site of application of the wound, kundi sa opposite side. Pag ito namang co, kontre co, merong injury both sides. Then pag locus minoris resistensya, walang wound on the side and on the opposite side, pero sa ibang part of the body, that is locus minoris resistensya. Then panglima is the extensive injury. Extensive injury. Physical injury involving a greater area of the body beyond the site of the application of force. It has not only the wide area of the injury but also varied types of injuries. A fall from a height or a run-over victim of a vehicular accident may suffer multiple fractures, lacerations, or organs, and other types of skin fractures. Diba? Example, ha? Pag ang tumama sa ulo ng tao, example, ikaw ay nahulog, for example. Tumama yung likod mo o tumama yung ulo mo sa ground, yan ang unang tumama. Hindi lang yung ulo mo ang nasira, pati yung ibang parts of your body, talagang marami ang naapektuhan. So ito ang pinakaseryoso, extensive injury. Yeah. Okay? So do not forget that. So there are 5 classifications with regards to the site of application of force and the location of the injury. Okay? Another topic is special types of wounds. Special types of wounds. No? Na pwede mong makita sa investigator at pwede mong mailagay sa report mo. The special types of wounds, we have defense wound. Yan. Yan. Makikita mo yan, example, in a homicide case or in a rape case, or example, in homicide, meron kang nakitang mga tama ng mga incised wounds dito, no, sa kamay niya. Then pwede mong sabihin, these are defense wounds. Okay? Kasi maybe during the commission of the crime, when the suspect is about to hit this victim, yan. So, pwede mong masabi na defense wound yun. Okay? Yan. Wound which is a result of person's instinctive reaction of self-protection, injuries suffered by a person to avoid or repel potential injuries contemplated by the aggressor. Yan. So, commonly, nakikita yan sa kamay. Yan. Dito, pwedeng may mga taga dyan. Example, taga. No? Meron kang nakitang mga taga dito. Basically, you can explain that those are defense wound, possible na ginamit ng victim yung kamay niya to defend himself. Okay? Alright. If someone is going to stab another with sharp instrument, I just mentioned it a while ago. Another special type of wound is the patterned wound. Patterned wound. This is a wound in the nature and shape of an object or instrument in which infers the object or instrument causing it. Impact of the face on the radiator grille of a car may cause imprint of the radiator grille on the face. Example, no? Merong shape ng plancha, no? May plancha, yung iron. Merong injury yan na na-form yung shape ng plancha, then that is a pattern wound. Pwedeng ang ginamit na instrument to inflict that wound is a plancha or an iron. Ganun din sa example dito. No? Okay? A person ran over a wheel of a car. Tire marks are shown on the body. Due to hanging, the nature of the abrasion mark on the neck may impair material use. Yeah. So, pag nagbigtili ng isang tao, makikita mo yung ligature dito, no, kung ang ginamit is yung tali ng baboy or tali ng karabaw, or ang ginamit is yung tie wire, no? So may distinction yan because of the pattern wound. Okay? Then another is self-inflicted wound. Self-inflicted wound is a wound produced on oneself as distinguished from suicide. The person has the intention to end his life. Yan. Alam niyo mga is self-inflicted, common yan sa mga nare-reach ng katawan. Wala namang self-inflicted sa likod ng at your back, no? So commonly yan, yung isang mga gustong magpatiwakal, no? But walang balak na agad-agad patayin ang sarili, no? So either nai-stress, ang ginagawa is linalaslas. Yung mga naglalaslas, makikita mo yan. No, those are self-inflicted wounds. Okay? Hmm. So, motive of producing self-inflicted wounds: to create or deliberately magnify an existing injury or disease for pension or workman compensation. So, pwedeng mang iba sinasadya para mag-claim ng benefits. No? To escape certain obligations or punishment. Okay? To create a new identity or destroy the existing one. No? O katulad ng gusto mong sirain ng fingerprint mo para maitago mo. You are slicing the ridges of your skin, no? To gain attention or sympathy. Yan, of course. Yung mga iba na nadidepress, kulang ng pansin, yan ang ginagawa. Or yung mga may psychotic problem. Okay? Some ways of self-mutilation, no? Some ways of self-mutilation, ah, yan. Head banging or bumping. No, yan yung mga tinuuntog ang ulo. No? Exposure of parts of the body to heat or radiation from open fires. No? Penetrating nail or spike to the chest wall. Castration of amputation of the penis. Trauma inflicted on the female genitalia. Subcutaneous injection of fecal matters. Pricking or acne eruption. Yan, these are self-inflicted wounds. No? Sinira mo yung acne mo, yan. Nail biting. Yan, di ba? That is nail biting. Okay, nakakaroon ng wound yan. Right? Grinding of the teeth. Pressure on the subcutaneous. Pulling of the body hair. Yan. Mahilig mag-pull ng body hair, that is self-inflicted wound. Pag nagdugo yan, for instance. Okay? Alright. So, this one, itong letter B dito, no, aside from physical violence na pwedeng ma-cause ng physical injury, heat or colds also, no, sa mga malalamig na lugar that can cause injury, no, sa ganun din sa mainit or sa heat. Electrical energy can cause injury. Chemical energy, radiation, change of atmosphere pressure, and infection can cause physical injury. Okay, so that is all about physical injury. Okay. So let me repeat the causes of physical injuries. We have physical violence, heat or cold, electrical energy, heat or cold, the electrical energy, chemical energy, radiation by radioactive substances, change of atmospheric pressure, and infection. Okay, so those are the considerations when we're talking about physical injuries, aside from its legal aspects. Okay, next is homicide investigation, generic. No, so this is a procedure that you have to understand when you are investigating a homicide case, whether it is murder, parricide, infanticide, or homicide specifically. So upon receipt of a call or walk-in complaint, the duty desk officer shall record the time it was reported. The same din sa discuss natin noon, get the identity of the caller, get the place of incident, get the nature of the incident, get the number of the victim, cell phone numbers, uh, telephone numbers, record the brief synopsis of the incident or summary of the incident, direct the nearest mobile car of the patrollers or the nearest police precinct to act as first responders, inform the duty investigator, preferably one team of investigators. Guidelines in homicide investigation: record the time of call was the call was received as well as the time of arrival at the crime scene. Preserve the crime scene, of course, by putting a cordon. Do not remove anything until its location and position have been noted and photographed. Now, the position of evidence should be measured and or photographed in reference for permanent fixtures in the crime scene. Pay attention to the wound inflicted, which may have caused the death of the victim and how it was committed. Designate one person to pick up all physical evidence, and no one should touch or move anything unless and until the fingerprint technician has finished his task. A systematic, detailed search of the crime scene should be conducted. Now, do not forget the search patterns. Colored as well as black and white photographs should be taken. Look for physical evidence that will tend to prove the elements of the crime under investigation. Take note of the unusual odors, symbols, fetishes, and rituals. When the body is finally moved, attention should be given to the area beneath the body. Baka may nahulog. While moving the body, use a rubber sheet to prevent contaminating crime scene with spilled blood. Conduct a careful inspection of the dead body holding a gun. No? Yeah, the hand of a dead person usually has no gripping power. Therefore, if the gun was placed in an unnatural position, uh, cadaveric spasm, it may have been placed in the hand after the death of the person. Yeah. Okay? Commonly yan, pag ikaw ang humawak sa baril at ikaw ay namatay, commonly, itong pagpilko ng kamay mo, yan ang tinatawag natin cadaveric spasm that will show the last action of the body on that particular area. No? Kaya, pag nilagay ang baril dito at nalaylay yung kamay, no? Wala siyang force, ibig sabihin na i-transfer, kalalagay lang ang baril. Kasi nga pag namatay ang tao, wala nang force yan para mag-grip pa. Okay? Note, the condition and types of food at the crime scene as well as pathologists may be able to use this information in determining whether victim's last meal was eaten at the crime scene. The course and direction of its bullet should be determined. This applies to the trajectory of the bullet through the body as well as the trajectory of the bullet through a solid object at the crime scene. If all slugs, pag sinabing slugs, these are bullets, these are fired bullets. If all slugs were not removed at the crime scene, have the body x-rayed. Yan, para makita baka may naiwan sa katawan. This is excellent for determining the distance of fire from patterns and shows the trajectory of the bullet through the body. Take photographs of all bystanders. They may be helpful later to identify possible weakness. Yeah, picture lang. Who sometimes does return to the crime scene. Baka malay mo, may kahina-hinalang mukha at the crime scene. 17. Try to determine if any of the victim's valuable are missing. Record the color of blood stains by red, reddish brown, brown, black, and almost black. Yan, kailangan yan. Determine what portion of the stain is wet. Just the center, completely wet, completely dry, dry around the edges. For an estimate of time of death. If the blood is wet, see if a paper clip will separate the stain as it goes through, or if the blood will flow together again. Note the size, dimension, and location of blood drops. Determine the direction and distance of blood drops. Enter in your notebook details of the test. Determine whether the victim is still alive. Record if the body is cool to touch, warm, or etc. Yan. Meron bang rigor mortis or algor mortis? Yan. I-check lang. Record the weather as well as the weather changes, whether sunny to cloudy or vice versa. Talk to everyone with whom the suspect has spoken. Look for weapons which could have inflicted the wounds. Obtain soil samples. Yeah. Take samples of other items. Obtain botanical samples when necessary. Take a temperature reading of the scene. If necessary, to cut the victim's clothing, avoid using bullet or knife holes. Where possible, cut the cutting along seams so that the clothing can be restored to approximately its original condition. The spatter pattern of blood spots should be noted as it is, because this is an aid in determining if the object or persons was in motion when the blood is spattered. Possible for an expert to tell you how the crime was committed as inflicted by the blood spots, and possible to trace every spot to its origin by observing its characteristics. Inactive, or whether it was a result of weapon striking a victim, or it was thrown there from a weapon, or it was created by some other weapon. Another, be cautious. Remember that fingerprints may be present on light switches, light bulbs, telephone doorknobs. No? Kaya nga wear gloves and do not just touch anything to avoid MAC. Or what is MAC? MAC. To avoid mutilation, alteration, and contamination of physical evidence. When fingerprints are on the object which has a dark color, consider using fluorescent powder as the standard fingerprint powders. No, so remember this fingerprint powder and fingerprint ink; they are different. No, you finish your fingerprint science already. Fingerprint powder is used to develop latent prints. Fingerprint ink is used to take or record fingerprints. Okay. Things to remember in the conduct of homicide. Place of importance. The crime scene, make a methodical and thorough search. Avenues of approach, how did the killer arrive? Importante yan. Avenues of escape, investigate and search along this road. Place where victim was seen immediately prior to his death, who was with him or what he is doing, what is this customary, and get the time. Place where suspect claims he was, places where he was seen before, during the after the crime was committed for the purpose of checking his alibi. Places where evidence can be found, weapons or poisons, where can they obtain, or where can they be hidden. Places where the suspect and the victim were frequently seen before the commission of the crime, and places of the suspect's layers. Okay? Time of importance in homicide investigation, you record the time of death, time crime was reported, time of arrival and the police of the scene, time of the arrival of the police at the scene, the time the victim was last known to be alive, the time of the relative to the victim's movement preceding death, time relating to suspect's movement, time the crime scene was turned over by the first responder, time the investigator arrived, and time the SOCO started and terminated the processing of the crime scene. Time recovered evidence was turned over to the evidence custodian, and the time the investigator was dispatched. Another is time of the arrival of the SOCO team at the crime scene. Persons of importance in homicide investigation, no, or these are the persons of interest, no. Victim, the victim's personal background, witnesses get their statements without delay. Kaya dyan mo ina-apply ang interrogation or interview. Suspects, isolate them if there is absolute evidence against them. Person who reported the crime must be recorded. Persons who stand to gain by the death. Yan. Example, mana. Pag namatay ang tao, siya ang hahalili o siyang magmamana sa posisyon o magmamana sa kayamanan or other benefits kung namatay ang isang tao. Yan. Pwede mong i-consider na persons of interest yan. Relatives and other sources of information. Things of importance in homicide investigation is of course the body of the deceased. Kung walang body of the victim, then we could not say that there is homicide. Properties or belongings of the deceased, weapons, what in particular, and means of transportation, sounds such as screams, odors, and items of evidence should be legally obtained and carefully preserved. Handling of suspect, kung siya ay naaresto. Obtain the following from the suspect. The suspect's clothing, any scratches on the suspect should be photographed. Yeah. Fingernail scraping should be obtained. Take blood samples from the suspect in a medically approved manner and with proper legal justification. No? Kailangan pag ginagawa mo yan, always in the presence of his counsel. Yan, always yan. Take hair samples. Have the fingerprint technician check the paper money which may have been taken from the victim's house or for the victim's fingerprint. Check the suspect's personal effects. Obtain teeth mark impression when appropriate. Semen samples in rape cases or rape with homicide should be obtained. Semen. Then consider polygraph examinations. No? Second thing to remember in handling a suspect is never take a suspect or suspect to the crime scene in the clothing he was wearing at the time he was arrested. The accused lawyer may later claim that the clothing was contaminated at the scene of the crime. Attempt to ascertain the following: the suspect's mode of living, before the crime was compared, and compare his behavior before the crime with his behavior after the crime, and make a methodical and complete check of the suspect's alibi. Body and post-mortem. Designate a member of the investigating team to secure the cadaver from the scene up to the place where the autopsy will be conducted. An investigating officer should remain at the autopsy area to prevent the embalming. Yan, kailangan yan kasi pag in-embalm yan, that will destroy any evidence inside. Kasi alam nyo, sa homicide investigation, yung autopsy na yan, yan lang ang paraan para yung patay magsalita. No? Yan. So, kailangan mabantayan yan. Obtain a copy of the autopsy report and make a detailed report to the chief of office or like the chief of police regarding the findings of the medical legal officer. Lastly, another is of course after the crime scene, pag na-process ang crime scene, follow-up investigation follows. Look for possible witnesses who may be close friends and that can possibly help in the solution of the case. You do interview. Yan. Methodically interview residents in the area and record the interviews by using a tape recorder or taking notes. Reenact. Yan. Reconstruction. Crime scene reconstruction. Reenact the crime to possibly establish what transpired at the crime scene. Return to the crime scene during the time of day the crime was committed. Conduct case conference for regular updates. Check the victims and suspects' toll calls. Yan, kung merong toll calls. And present or present photographs and crime reports to several psychiatrists to ascertain what type of person would commit such a crime, including motives. Yan, kailangan yan. If there is or there are already witnesses, keep them separated so that they will give them what personally observed and not just corroborate what others are saying. And lastly, that will be the last, court preparation. Have a diagram at the crime scene and the location of all evidence. Make a list of the evidence on hand and what you hope to prove it. Be prepared to show the following: relationship existed between the victim and the suspect. Yan, indication that the suspect treated to harm the victim. Possible witnesses to the threats. A photograph of the crime scene can be very helpful. Review everything, including testimony, with the prosecutor before trial, and review with witnesses the testimony to refresh their memory. Yan. Yan ang kailangan mong i-prepare before a court presentation because again, if you are an investigator, you will help the prosecution, no? You will help them to prove that there is a crime committed and the person is guilty. Therefore, as investigators, you are bound by law, whether you like it or not, that you have to attend court duties. So therefore, so that you will not be a laughing stock or hindi ka pagtawanan, or hindi masira ang inumpisahan mo, then you have to prepare the court presentation. So with that, that ends chapter 6, and that ends the subject SCI 1 with legal medicine. Any other things that were not included, again, it is not late. No, we are. This is just the starting point. So as you go on, you will learn other things as far as the subject is concerned. All right. So again, ladies and gentlemen, uh, we end this discussion. But again, this is not the end, but the beginning of everything. Okay. So kung ano man ang kulang, punan natin yan as we go on in our endeavor. Okay? So with that, thank you, and we shall put to rest the subject matter SCI 1 with legal medicine. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your cooperation and understanding. Okay? So God bless us all.